Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another top 10. This time we got tight ends, and I think this tight end class is low key a little bit underrated. I know it's not the best tight end class we've ever seen, but we still got some good players, man. And let's get right into it, starting with maybe a little bit of a controversial player, and Erick All out of Iowa, formerly of Michigan, came over to Iowa this past season, played 6 games, maybe in his seventh, tore his ACL against Wisconsin, I believe. But the reason he's here on this list in the top 10 is because of his athletic ability, and I really just have a lot of hope that he can come back from this. Now, a lot of this is projection with him, and it's projection with a lot of guys, but Erick All definitely is a projection just because, yes, he's off the ACL. That's a major injury, especially to a guy that depends a lot on his athleticism. But in 2022, when he was still at Michigan, I think he played one game, and then in like week 3, he got season-ending and what he called life-changing spinal surgery or back surgery. So the medical is definitely a big question mark with Erick All. Like the on-field production and when he was on the field, when he was being targeted, that is not. Now the hands, a little bit inconsistent. Would love to see those get a little bit better. But with the ball in his hands, he's dynamic. I mean, he has all the ability in the world to be a great route runner from the tight end position. He's a mismatch in the slot. He's a mismatch against linebackers for sure. And obviously he falls in a day 3 projection, but I think if he didn't get injured, he would be talked about as possibly being a top 5 tight end in this class because, like I said, it isn't a strong tight end class, but I don't think it should be overlooked. Obviously, you can see that the stats don't exactly pop off the screen. This guy was stuck behind Colston Loveland at Michigan and Luke Schoonmaker, and like he was stuck behind a bunch of guys in Michigan. That's why he transferred to Iowa to have that opportunity to really shine. He was looking really good. Obviously, the Iowa offense is horrible, but he was looking pretty good. And then just like that, I mean, the season was ended from a low blow from a linebacker coming back across the field. Really sucked to see, honestly, because he was their leading receiver at 21 catches and 299 yards, 7 games through the season. So take that into account for what you will with that Iowa Hawkeyes offense. At number 9, we got Tip Reiman out of Illinois, the super athletic tight end as well. Showed out at the combine with great vertical, broad jump. He had a good 40 time, I believe. Benched, I think, 28 reps, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm thinking of a different guy, but I think he did bench, and it was a pretty good number. I want to say it was 28, 26, somewhere around there. But 6'5", 271, and he moves so well carrying all that weight. You would not expect it, but I think he ran I think he was in the 4.6s or maybe like low 4.7s. Really, really good time, though, for that big of a tight end. Like pretty solid blocker as well. Definitely has the ability to be a receiver. Definitely was not featured as a receiver that much in that Illinois offense, as you can see from the numbers, but a lot of upside with this guy just to be a solid tight end. Maybe he's just a solid tight end 2 in the league. Not sure if he goes much higher than that. That might be his ceiling. But if you can get the most out of him, a like high-end tight end 2 in this league is very valuable and one that can block as well. Going to be very interested to see where he goes. I have a just general day 3 projection. A lot of my big board right now is not set in stone, so I'm not giving an actual projection on these guys quite yet. It's just going to be, first round, top 10, top 50, top 100, late day 2, early day 3. Like, it's going to be those kinds of projections. But we just got a day 3 projection because I think he can go anywhere from early to late on day 3. He might be able to sneak into day 2 with his athletic profile, but I would have my doubts that happened. But a really solid player, like I said, can be a really good run blocker for you. Obviously, the size, he should be able to do that. I think you could put him in the backfield even as that fullback, H-back type role, whatever you want to call it. And he can block from there as well as be in line. I don't think you'll ever flex him out to the slot. You definitely could if he develops the route running part of his game, but For now, he'll be an inline tight end, maybe a utility fullback type guy. At number 8, we got Tanner McLachlan out of Arizona. Now, this dude I watched firsthand just rip apart, along with a multitude of other guys, that Washington State Cougars offense. Week 6, I believe, or 7 of the college football season, they came in and torched us, and he was a big reason why in the run game and the pass game. He was setting up blocks, getting up to the second level, setting up running lanes for, can't remember the running back's name, but McLachlan was getting out there in front of guys. Like, he was getting out to the corners, he was getting out to the safeties, the linebackers. He was doing fantastic things all across the board against Washington State. And like I said, I watched it firsthand. It was horrible to watch. But this dude is a pretty solid prospect. I think, again, kind of like Tip Reiman, he could end up being a really, really high-end tight end, too, in this league. Maybe a fringe tight end 1. I don't think he quite has the athletic ability to be a tight end 1, but maybe I'm wrong. But at 6'5", 244, like I said, really good in the run game. He's going to come in day one and be a solid run blocker for you. You can depend on that. And then you have the receiving side of things, where he actually had his most productive year this year by far. And it was a great year. Like, yes, he's not the most athletic. He's not the fastest guy. But he's not easy to get down to the ground. He runs through a lot of contact and picks up extra yards. I remember in the WSU game, actually, he caught a ball, like a shallow post route, over the middle of the field. Maybe it was a dig. I'm not really too sure. I'd have to look back on it. But one of the safeties, I don't think it was Hicks, I think it might have been Sam Lockett, came up and threw a good shot at him. He just bounced right off and walked right into the end zone 10 yards later. So Tanner McLachlan's a very interesting prospect. I think he could go higher than a lot of people think. He is here at 8 for me, just because of other guys having a little bit more receiving production. But one of the better run blockers of this class for the tight ends. At number 7, we've got Jaheim Bell out of Florida State. Now, Jaheim Bell is a very interesting prospect just because obviously when you look at the size, 6'2", 241, you're like, that's not a tight end. And it's really not. He's super versatile, just an absolute utility player. He's not going to be used in a traditional tight end role. He's not always going to be in line. Yes, he will be in line, but I imagine he'll be H-back, that slot tight end type of role, because he is an absolute mismatch against linebackers and even some safeties with his speed and athletic ability. I love his receiving upside. I think he could be one of the top 10 receiving tight ends in the league. Maybe not top 10 overall tight ends, just because you don't know with the size how well of a run blocker he's actually going to be. And he was kind of inconsistent anyways at Florida State and South Carolina before he transferred to Florida State. So he's going to be a really interesting prospect. And I have it written down here just so, like, as a note to myself. At South Carolina, his junior year, he had like 70 carries for 300 yards. 70 carries. Not receptions, carries. They used him out of the backfield. So this guy, I have a feeling that he's got to go to creative offense. I think of offenses like maybe an Andy Reid offense, a Brian Callahan, Brian Dable, Mike McDaniel. I could see this guy really thriving in offenses with these just uber creative offensive minds like those guys I just mentioned, among others. He's got to be used in a specific role. Like, if your team drafts him, just know his rookie year, he will be featured in a multitude of different ways, but they do have a plan for him. So don't question oh, why we get Jaheim Bell? We have this guy at tight end as well already. They've got a plan. He's going to be very interesting to watch where he goes, because he's one of the more productive tight ends in this class, and I really like Jaheim Bell, but he does fall here to 7 because of the size and the unknown of really what he's going to do and what position he will actually end up playing. I do think it'll be marked down as tight end on a roster or a depth chart, but he might be more of an H-back. Maybe they use him as a versatile slot piece. a running back, I don't know. I really don't. At number 6, we got the farm boy, Cade Stover out of Ohio State. Day 3 pick for me still, 6'4", 247, almost at that 250 mark. Really, really good blocker in this class. Him and Tanner McLachlan, I think, are probably the two best blockers of this class, with a couple other guys trailing very close behind them. But Stover is just really, you can count on this guy to block in the run game. And I think you can count on him in the pass game as well. He's a solid receiver, had a really productive year this year for Ohio State, a career year. He was a really kind of that safety blanket for Kyle McCord this year. He can find the zone, just sit in it and wait for his quarterback to find him. I think he could definitely go to one of like the Jets later picks. I feel like the Jets, just like this guy would fit what they want to do with Breece Hall in the running game. You give Aaron Rodgers another weapon in the passing game. It's not like this explosive weapon, but he's a guy, like I said, he can find the zones. He'll sit in them and just carry with the quarterback if he's traveling outside the pocket to find an open guy, just an outlet. I really, really like Cade Stover. Yes, he is a senior. He's a little bit older. I think he's 23. At least he'll be 23 going into his rookie year. But I really like him as a prospect, and I think he's going to be probably one of the better day one starters for you of this class, compared to some other guys. Like, it's Brock Bowers, it's Jatavion Sanders, and then it's probably Cade Stover, who you could count on day one walking into a locker room and actually start for you and have solid production. I've got a lot of high praise for Cade Stover. I know a lot of other people do too. I know he comes here at 6, but it's more of like the athletic ability for him rather than his actual production. He's definitely one of the higher floor guys in this class. At number 5, we have Theo Johnson. Yes, number 5. The top, well, I would say 6 to 3. So Cade Stover till about 3 on this list. I flip-flop with a lot, so you could definitely, do the same, and I wouldn't argue with you. But Theo Johnson's in at 6'6", almost 260 pounds, athletic freak for that size. People are comparing him to, Jimmy Graham, or I don't think Tony Gonzalez, but Darren Waller even. Like, this dude has some high comparisons, elite comparisons, because of the size and the athletic ability that he brings to the table. You look at the receptions, or his stats, 7 touchdowns on 34 catches. That's, 20% of the time he was catching a touchdown pass? Is that right? That's about right? Almost 20% of the time he caught the ball, it was a touchdown. That is ridiculous. Like I said, all the athletic ability in the world. We all saw it at the combine. He can jump out of the gym. He can run out of the gym if you really want him to. He's a mismatch nightmare for any linebacker, any safety, even cornerbacks, with his length, frame, and height. Like, this dude, whoever drafts him is going to need to use him correctly. I do think he could develop into a tight end 1 in this league. I could definitely have him higher on this list. I'm kind of regretting not having him a little higher, but I do think these top 5 or 6 guys are pretty close outside of the top 2. I think they're pretty set in stone, but 3 through 6, I think, is very, very interchangeable, and maybe arguably 3 through 8 or 9. So, but Theo Johnson, obviously, jump ball, red zone threat type of player. Not the greatest blocker in the world, but definitely has the size to become a solid blocker in the NFL. And it's not like, he's standing at 6'6", 240. I think if he really develops, he's going to be a dangerous weapon in this league. At number 4, maybe a little bit of a surprise for some people, is Ben Sinnott. Or is it Sinnott? Sinnott? I still don't know how to say this dude's name. But at 6'4", 250, he surprised the hell out of me with his athletic testing at the combine. He had like a 10-foot broad jump, had a solid vertical. I think it was like 36 inches, 37, something like that, which I did not expect at all. Super, super good blocker. This is the other guy that's kind of up there with Stover and McLachlan for me, that are just going to come in, be solid run blockers for you if they aren't going to be anything else in their rookie year. But I think Sinnott has a lot more receiving upside than a Cade Stover. Maybe not a McLachlan, but definitely a Cade Stover. Had a really, really good year this year, career year at Kansas State. And obviously Kansas State's not known for their football, but I mean, this dude showed out. 49 catches, 676 yards, almost 14 yards per catch. So good numbers. And I think he could play that kind of fullback role. He could play that inline tight end. I don't know if he would play out in the slot exactly. This tight end class is definitely interesting. Let's just put it that way. And Ben Sinnott adds to that with his Senior Bowl performance. That was really good, and scouts started to recognize him along with basically the entire draft community. They're like, oh, Ben Sinnott, he's not too bad himself. And we all thought, Theo Johnson would kind of take over the Senior Bowl and the Combine, and it was this guy. Whether it was athletic testing, receiving drills, or blocking drills. He's been incredible. He's had an incredible offseason process, so good on you. He comes in here at number 4. At number 3, is it a little high? Maybe, but this is one of my favorite tight end prospects of this entire class. Dallin Holker out of Colorado State. He was on the verge. He was getting very close to Ja'Tavion Sanders for me because of his blocking ability. And then the athletic testing kind of shot him back down the board. Probably back to reality a little bit. But at 6'3", 241, Dallin Holker, formerly of BYU. I really like this dude. He can block. Maybe not the best blocker of this class, but he is getting better at it. His receiving ability, though, is incredible. I love his just route. Not even that he's a skilled route runner, but finding the open spots within the zone, finding your mismatches, and using leverage to your advantage in the receiving game. That is what he does, and he does it so, so well. You think back to the game against Colorado where he dominated basically that entire game. There was no answer for him over the middle of the field. Big body, it's hard to bring him down. It was pretty rare to see him go down on the first tackler. He's usually shedding guys off, getting a little bit after the catch and after contact. I think he could be a tight end 1 in this league, and that's why he comes in here at number 3. He had 64 catches, 767 yards this season. Absolute breakout season at Colorado State after 4 years, I believe, at BYU. It might have been 3, but I think it was 4. I think this was his redshirt senior year. So I really like Dallin Holker. I understand some people maybe don't like him as much because he played in the Mountain West and he didn't really do much at BYU, and then he transferred, had this big season in the Mountain West where the competition may not be that great, but I still think the Mountain West is a solid conference in college football. And Dallin Holker in that Colorado State offense, he was a big, big part of it. You think of him and Torrey Horton and I'm forgetting the other guy. Yeah, I'm not going to come up with the name. But he was a big reason why those guys were still getting single coverage, because they couldn't put another safety over the top of one side because it's just going to open up a lane for this dude to get big, explosive plays. So Dallin Holker, I think, is one of the better receiving prospects in this tight end class, and I do think he goes higher than a lot of people think. At number 2, I already said it. He was getting close to him, but it is Ja'Tavion Sanders, who is now pulled away. He is a top 50 prospect for me out of Texas, 6'4", 245, athletic freak as well. The receiving upside for this dude. There's a reason why a lot of people, including myself, have put Ja'Tavion Sanders to the Dolphins in the first round. Maybe not anymore since they're at pick 21, but when they were pick 30, 29 in that area, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility still. You think of the absolute track stars that they have on that team, and then you add a guy like this to that offense who just has more athletic upside than any tight end in this class, in my opinion. By far. Super fast, obviously big. Love his frame because he's not 6'4", 225 or 230. He's got a good frame on him. He can become a good run blocker, in my opinion. Is he right now? Meh, a little inconsistent, but that's not why you would draft him right now. You're drafting this guy based off the receiving production and upside that he has. 99 receptions in his career, over 1,200, almost 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns. Obviously, the touchdowns are a little bit low. If you don't account for him, he is an X factor. Like, he will beat you all over the field, running shallow routes, intermediate routes, over the middle, outside. The dude can beat you in any way possible. Another just mismatch nightmare. Like, him and Theo Johnson are probably the biggest mismatches. You're going to see it in this class, even though, Brock Bowers, who we're going to get to, obviously, he's pretty good mismatch himself, but I think the size and the athletic ability of this dude and Theo Johnson is unmatched for any linebacker. If you put a linebacker on these guys, I mean, just call it a day at that point. If you're putting a linebacker on them down in, down out, it's over. And yes, you're going to have to at some points because this dude's going to be in line. He has the size to be an inline tight end, but he can also play out in the slot. And that's, if you drag a linebacker out into the slot in open space, good luck. Because he's got the route running ability. And like I said, multiple times, the athletic ability to either run right past you, put your ass in the dirt by just breaking your ankles on a route, or he'll jump over you. So, Jatavion Sanders out of Texas, really, really good player. Top 50 for me. And there's a reason for that. And finally, number 1. Wow, who would have guessed this one? Brock Bowers out of Georgia. I definitely wouldn't have. We all knew. We all knew he's been number 1 tight end since his freshman year in college. And I think he's one of the better tight end prospects we might ever see. Obviously, you've got Colston Loveland, who's coming up next year, but I don't think he even touches the potential and production of a Brock Bowers. I mean, over 2,500 receiving yards as a tight end in 3 years. I mean, I think his true freshman year was his best year. That is absurd. I mean, obviously after that, defenses were double, triple covering this dude, making sure that he did not beat them, and he still would. The run after the catch ability, the route running, the run blocking, he's got it all. The hands, I mean, literally has it all for a tight end prospect, and that's why he is a top 10 prospect, arguably a top 5 prospect. And he was a top 5 prospect for me for a while until a couple other guys moved up the board for me. Still a fantastic prospect. 6'3", 243. I do think that his combine weight was a little heavier than his actual play weight. I think he's probably closer to the 235 area. But if it does stay around 240 to 250, somewhere in that 10-pound range, he'll be just fine. And I think he'll be just fine even if he drops below 240 because of the athletic ability, his receiving ability. He's hard to bring down as well. Like, the yards after contact are good. Yards after the catch are good in general. The dude is a special talent. On the verge, I mean, I think he is, but a generational prospect for the position. I think he's a better prospect than Kyle Pitts was, and they called that guy the unicorn. So, take that for what you will, obviously. We all have different opinions. But Brock Bowers, to me, I think day one, he's going to walk in and be a top 7 tight end in the league. Receive ability and everything. I think he projects kind of like a Mark Andrews kind of tight end. He's going to kill you over the middle. And if you give him the space, he's going to run another 20 yards and into the end zone. Brock Bowers, special player, special prospect, top 10 for me. Top 10 for, I would assume, the consensus. But obviously you've got some people who just want to be different. And that's fine. I ain't judging, kind of. But, I mean, the production that he had in the SEC as well, like, it's undeniable. The film is undeniable. The athletic ability is undeniable. The production is, you can't refuse it. Speaks for itself, almost 30 touchdowns in 3 years. That's incredible. So, but that'll do it for me here. Obviously, we've got offensive line coming up next. Let me know where I might have gone wrong. Let me know who your top tight ends are, or maybe your favorite tight end in this class is, whether that is a Brock Bowers, or maybe it's a sleeper, an Erick All, Tip Reiman, AJ Barner, who we didn't really get to. Like, there's a lot of guys out there in this class. I think it's an underrated class. I think it's kind of been shit on a little bit just because it's not uber talented like the wide receiver class or the quarterback class this year, or even the offensive line, the DBs. Like, there's a lot of good positional classes in this overall draft class. And I know tight end isn't like the strongest of them or even in the middle of the pack, but I still think it's a solid class for talent. And you're going to find some really productive and long term NFL players in this class. So, like I said, let me know down in the comments below. But I hope you enjoyed this one. Hope you all have a good day. It is beautiful. It's springtime. Like, we're getting the sun back. Love the vibes, man. Love the vibes. So I will see y'all in the next one. Take it easy and peace.